Spartans! Ready your breakfast and eat hearty. But tonight, we dine!
Nasty.
Joined by Brent.
Hey guys.
And we are going to be moving forward. You know, we're moving off of the off season as we move into training camp here. We're on July 31st right now. We're kind of living in the past here, living in what happened in early May. So we're going to try to wrap up this division. I know we spent a lot of time on Division 1 and 2, but there's been significantly less draft picks in Division 3 and 4, with Brent only having 2, Malf only having 2, Mike only having 3. And, you know, 2 of those teams are mine and yours, Brent, so I don't know if we want to spend a ton of time bragging about how we feel like we did in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could go back and forth about arguing about who did what, and I know you talked about me not doing enough in the draft, and
just not doing enough to get a B as
yeah,
a total
my
draft.
my grade,
like one player,
my grade, that sort of thing. But we can break that down. But we really want to just move this forward and try to move in, like Gerard said, kind of training camp starting up. So we want to get into actual football talk, start doing like season previews, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
and we've got some injuries to kind of go over and seeing how that affects people. But I don't want to be here, you know, if we're trying to season preview everything, I don't want to be sitting here trying to rush 3 podcasts to get all our season previews in before we start doing what we really want to do, which is breaking down like week 1 and week 2 and all the action, getting you guys back on the podcast so me and Brent just don't drone on and complain about trades. So yeah.
Sounds good. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Maybe start with Division 3.
Yeah, so we'll go with Division 3. We'll talk about Mike's team first, Hackenberger and Fries. Mike did not have a first-round pick or a third-round pick. We kind of talked about this earlier in the summer, but Mike traded his first-round pick and Deion Kane over to Everything Must Go for Evan Ingram. And at the time, that trade looked kind of questionable just because Evan Ingram seemed to be buried on, like, you know, third or fourth option with the team. But now when you look at it, it's looking a whole lot better with the Tate suspension and the Shepard injury.
Yeah, I think Ingram is absolutely going to feast in this offense. I mean, coming out of his rookie year, he was one of the most productive rookie tight ends in NFL history. Last year, he kind of took a seat back, or took a back seat to some of the other offensive weapons. Saquon Barkley showed his dominance in the offense, but now I really think that Ingram can really show up with. I mean, what do you look at with the Giants? They want somebody who can catch the ball in short yardage situations and make a play, bust off like long gains, and I think that's exactly what Evan Ingram can do. If Eli or Daniel Jones is playing in that quarterback role, I don't think they're chucking it down the field. Like, I really think they're looking at. I mean, they brought in Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard's a possession receiver. I think they have a lot of these like kind of possession guys, and obviously Shepard's hurt right now. Golden Tate's suspended for the first 4 games. I think Evan Ingram's going to establish himself early and really continue that on throughout the season. And
right now, I mean, granted, we don't know what Shepard's status is, but the one receiver right now, correct me if I'm wrong, is Cody Lattimore, with Darius Slayton not far behind him on the depth chart. So that's a pretty ugly combo on the outside there. So Evan Ingram's probably going to be the focal point along with Saquon Barkley in this offense. So it just seems like it looked like good value at the time or equal value, but the fact that he's now going to be targeted even more in a bigger part of the offense looks like it's even better value with that trade. Then he turns around in the second round and he picks Devin Singletary. And I think at the time, you know, you look at that move and just a crowded backfield in Buffalo. You're halfway through the second round, and yeah, this class didn't seem as deep. They didn't seem like there was a ton of like, how could he not pick this guy talent? But now you're looking at it, and I think Devin Singletary has a real chance to emerge this year. I don't know. There's been some reports about Yeldon not making the roster. I don't know if Gore or McCoy or Yeldon are all locks to make the roster, and I think Singletary can definitely emerge as the starter, if not a timeshare kind of back there, and make himself fantasy relevant this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, if you looked at any researchers doing like kind of combine grades and that sort of thing, a lot of people talk Singletary up before the combine as maybe like the second or third best running back in the class. Then the combine hit, he didn't have as good of a performance, so he dropped down on a lot of people's kind of how they were viewing him for the season and the draft grade that they would give him and everything. So, but he ends up in Buffalo. There's obviously going to be some kind of running back by committee timeshare sort of thing, I believe, at least this year. But I think LaShawn McCoy's on his way out. Frank Gore is 36 years old, so I don't know why he's still in the league.
He's immortal. So.
And I love Frank Gore. He's had a hell of a career, but he's got to be on his way out. I mean, I think his job is going to be really to mentor, and he has, I don't know how many yards he has to get, but he has to hit some kind of yardage, and that he'll have a certain number for his career. So I think he's going to kind of come in, get maybe 400, 500 yards rushing this year, get out. And yeah, Yeldon is kind of an afterthought sometimes, and I think I saw the same thing. He's kind of fourth on the depth chart as far as running back, and could be barely making the team. But I assume that they're either going to keep all four, or they're going to be able to trade maybe LaShawn McCoy to a team that maybe is more of a playoff contender, that sort of thing this year.
And well, and just like how we're seeing injuries happen early this preseason, I'm sure that maybe one team will, have some sort of injury bug hit their backfield, and then all of a sudden the four backs that look like nobody else wanted them, now there's a huge hole, and Buffalo can kind of capitalize on that. But this isn't a Bills podcast as much as Ryan would want it to be, so we're gonna move along. Mike didn't have a third-round pick because he picked up Derrick Henry during the season, and then in the fourth round, he picked up James Williams, the running back that used to be playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, who no
already
longer
cut.
is. And Mike has already cut him as well. So that's about all we'll talk about James Williams. And then in the fifth round, he picks Malcolm Brown, try to lock down some of that Rams backfield because he does have Gurley, and there was the concern with the arthritis.
And I think with Malcolm Brown, it's one of those things. I honestly think that Malcolm Brown is a better pure backup to Todd Gurley than Darrell Henderson. I think Henderson is getting a lot of love in the fantasy community, and the kind of seeing him as, he might do the Alvin Kamara role, or he's going to come in and catch a lot of passes and kind of spell Todd Gurley and that sort of thing. But I honestly believe that if Gurley goes down, Malcolm Brown is going to be the one that takes the goal line carries. I think he's going to be more of the primary lead, whereas Darrell Henderson is going to be that kind of flex option, maybe spread out wide, kind of run him in more like passing routes or third down back.
Mm-hmm. And I think, and I think that, with the question of Gurley's health and how much they're going to use him and how little they did use him in the playoffs, it kind of, kind of begs the question of like what is going to happen this season, and it really benefits Mike to definitely lock down multiple pieces of that backfield, especially in the fifth round when we talked earlier. You're throwing darts. You don't know. At least this guy is an NFL caliber player. They brought him back this year, so clearly the Rams see something in Malcolm Brown.
Yeah. And overall in the draft grade, I gave him a B, but I feel like it might even look better than that now with Devin Singletary. I think Mike did a really good job addressing needs. So he was, I felt like he had a pretty good tight end in O.J. Howard, but he solidifies that tight end position. He backs up Todd Gurley, who has the lingering knee injuries. He gets a potential maybe RB3, RB2 with Singletary, depending on what he can do. So I think he just addresses needs, and that's really what a team of his caliber needs to do in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Mike struggled with injuries last year. He's struggling with injuries already this year with A.J. Green, and Mike Evans was carted off the other day, and Derrick Henry's in a walking boot. So, the injury bug has definitely bit Hackenberger and Fries again. But he loses Kareem Hunt for at least 8 games, and who knows what his role is going to be like in that Browns offense. So he's definitely looking to replace his two-headed monster, which he had last year, which was Hunt and Gurley. on top of just the extreme depth that he had at receiver and then O.J. Howard at tight end. So he definitely solidified a lot of positions there. And yeah, made himself just even more of a contender and a tough out again moving forward this year. And we were talking the other day, and he was saying how his team, was so much worse because he got bit by the injury bug. He only had the third best record and the second most points by like just a handful of points. So even though he had 12 guys on IR last year, he still had a pretty solid season.
Yeah, and I think the rich is going to keep getting richer because he's going to get those guys back. I mean, we talked about the injury bug, but that could happen to any team. So, but I think he has some solid depth, and I think he's going to be kind of in that top 3 or 4 this year as well.
Yeah. So we move on to the team who picked the division, which was Fairbanks Flamingos Tyler. And I think we're going to spend a little less time, even though Tyler had a really good deep draft, we're going to spend a little less time on this just because we spent an entire episode with Tyler interviewing him about his draft strategy and how it turned out. But just a quick recap, he picks David Montgomery at 1-3. He picks Miles Sanders at 1-6. And we've gone over this trade multiple times, but trading Jared Goff for 1-6, incredible value in my eyes. And then Noah Fant at 1-10, and then Deebo Samuel at 2-3. Just a quick word, just like what he said, he comes out with at least 3 starters and potentially a 4th in Noah Fant, depending on how he breaks into that Denver offense. Deebo Samuel is very highly praised, and they think he's going to be a solid player, potentially even a better player than Dante Pettis mid-year. So we'll see kind of how that all shakes out. But you're looking at a couple rookies in Jalen Hurd and Deebo Samuel coming in and joining a receiver core with Dante Pettis, and it's kind of an open season there in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I like that San Francisco. The entire offense. I think they're addressing kind of the wide receiver position. They have several running backs. Jimmy G's coming back off of the ACL, so we'll see kind of how he is. But I love Deebo Samuel. I think he has the potential to be a solid wide receiver in this league. But I think we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and saying, like, I know the last couple of years even we haven't really seen that rookie wide receiver kind of maturation right away. So I really think we kind of have to let them play out their rookie year. So my expectation for Deebo Samuel maybe is a little less than other people's. I feel like he's going to be a solid player, but I think he's really going to kind of come into his own in year 2 and year 3. So I think he's one to kind of watch out for. But the first 2 picks, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, I think both of them are going to be lead backs in their respective on their respective teams sooner rather than later. I think David Montgomery is going to share a little bit of that Jordan Howard role. Like, obviously they brought in Mike Davis, they like him, so I think between Montgomery and Davis, I think they're going to split some carries, but I think Montgomery's just the better back. I think he's going to win out and secure that at least first, second down. They obviously have Tariq Cohen, so that kind of hinders his play catch or pass catching ability. But I can't say much more than 4 solid picks in the first round and then early seconds. Mm-hmm.
And then he comes back with Riley Ridley in the 3rd. Then he gets Hunter Renfrow, Daniel Jones in the 4th, and then Andy Dalton in the 5th. Riley Ridley might not be a guy who shines this year, but he might, depending on the injury situation. But it kind of looks like Gabriel, Miller, and Robinson kind of have the top 3 receiver spots. But yep. Who knows if they're all there next season, and who knows if he doesn't beat out Taylor Gabriel. I don't say Taylor Gabriel with any confidence that he's going to maintain to be the 3, but it just seems like that's what Matt Nagy wants to do, is kind of have quick people, get the ball out quick, throw some screen passes, and Gabriel was a part of the offense last year, not a huge part, and maybe Riley Ridley's got the ability to overtake him. And then Hunter Renfrow right now is in a battle for the slot in Oakland with Ryan Grant.
And John Gruden loves him. They've come out and said that they really like him as that slot receiver and could be kind of a possession receiver, kind of that Yeah, I think he fits the mold as that kind of go across the middle, gain some yards. But I don't know where he is in the pecking order yet. I mean, I know they like him, but I don't know. You said he's battling with Ryan Grant, so maybe battling for that wide receiver 3 position, the slot receiver. And going back to Chicago, I heard a comment this week actually that Matt Nagy said he doesn't care about your fantasy football team. I can't remember how he said it exactly, but it was one of those things. He was like, we're going to get the receivers that are open, that's who we're going to hit. It's kind of that wide receiver New England approach, It's who knows if it's going to be Robinson one week or Miller one week, or maybe Riley Ridley does step up and Tyler Gabriel comes in. So,
well, I think that's exactly the type of offense there. I think that's going to be very much like a Browns offense. I mean, I know the Browns offense got a lot better this year, but the Browns last year with Baker Mayfield, he didn't discriminate against who it was. Jarvis Landry was by far the biggest name and probably the best receiver on that team last year. But there were plenty of games that Jarvis Landry was invisible. And David Njoku's a young, promising tight end, and there were plenty of games when David Njoku was, 1 for 6 or something like that. So, I think that the Bears' offense is very, very similar to that. There's weeks when Robinson goes off, there's weeks when Burton went off, there's weeks when Miller went off, and that was just in year 1. And there's weeks when Cohen went off, just in year 1 of the offense. And I think as that offense continues to develop, it's not going to discriminate. It's not going to say, oh, well, Allen Robinson's our 1, so we got to get him the ball. It's whoever's open, whoever the game plan fits that week, that's the person who's going to go off. And it's going to be pretty tough and probably pretty frustrating to predict who those people are week to week. But then he kind of just reloads. Again, he trades away Goff, and then he reloads with Daniel Jones and Andy Dalton. And, who knows what Daniel Jones is going to be. There's a lot of controversy about where the Giants picked him. But
but if you get a starting quarterback in this league, I mean, you always have the opportunity or the possibility of getting 20 to 25 points a game. So don't think that's going to happen this year, but of course he can kind of hang out on the taxi squad for this year, maybe even next. But depending on what his role is in New York and how soon he's coming off the bench to relieve Eli.
Yeah, and then we move to you, Brent.
Yeah, and we won't say too much about it. I know you dispute my grade.
I just dispute your grade. I don't think that your draft is bad. I know, especially when you say that you gave up the 111 to help yourself get Kerryon Johnson, and then you traded back to get the 111, and you picked AJ Brown. When you look at what you gathered for the picks that you gave up, I'm not saying that you did a bad job in the draft, but I'm just saying if you're going to grade solely on the people that were picked with the draft picks you had, picking 2 people doesn't give you a B, no matter how good those 2 people are.
That's the question is, so you're saying that it's quantity over quality then?
I'm saying that you could get both, and you got one of them, quality. So that's where I feel like you're kind of in the C+ range, because I feel like that's an average draft because you just added one better player. Considering, we talk about everything must go, we talk about Fairbanks Flamingos, and they are adding multiple players that are going to help their roster now.
And they got higher grades than I did.
They did.
So
but
here's
I still
here's
feel
how
like
I
even
break.
Backyard Boys, Backyard Boys gets at least two guys who are going to step in, or not step in, but who have the possibility of making his team better. And he got the same grade, if not a little less than you.
So if you're sitting there telling me that if I took AJ Brown and Damian Harris, if I still had my second round pick, if I took AJ Brown then Damian Harris, then I could have a better grade than Backyard Boys. But because he took Marquise Brown and Damian Harris, and I took AJ Brown,
but then his
is better than mine.
But then he also picked Travion Williams, and he also picked Darius Slayton, who is now gone from his team, and he also picked Amir Abdullah.
And we know how much both of us love Amir Abdullah. Note there, Amir Abdullah is available on free agency waiver currently at this time. I don't know.
As is Jeremy Hill, in case anyone has a hunch that Jeremy Hill is going to be relevant again.
Going back to it, I think that the way that I was grading myself on this is for the value of the pick. So I looked that I traded back into the first round to get, for what I consider excellent value. I had A.J. Brown as a top 5 pick in this draft. If I was drafting in the top 5, I would have picked him. So if I have somebody rated that high and I get him at the 111, then I feel like that is a quality draft for me, because all I'm looking for is adding depth to the position of wide receiver. That's the position that I probably highlight more than anything. And now I feel like A.J. Brown is going to come in as probably my wide receiver 5. And so quantity, I did not do well. I did not get numerous picks. I got Travis Homer in the 5th round. We'll see what happens with that. The Seattle backfield is pretty clear as far as Carson, Penny. I know there's going to be some combination of that, but we'll see if Homer gets a chance in that kind of C.J. Prosise role, because C.J. Prosise obviously is still on the team, but he never completes a full year.
Yeah, well, so neither does Chris Carson. So.
True. So Travis Homer could be a breakout candidate. So again, it's a 5th round pick, so that's kind of a shot in the dark. But going back to it, I totally understand what you're saying, and maybe I should give myself a C or a C plus, but I'm just saying where I took the guy that I was looking at, A.J. Brown, where I drafted him, I feel like that was a very quality pick. Yeah. And that's what I was grading on.
Yeah, and you also gave the NJ Giants a C or C minus, one of the two. So I think it was a C. So you couldn't have graded yourself much lower than a B on your curve. But we digress. And moving on, let's see how we're doing. We're doing okay. All right, moving on to Division 4. Because
we'll
we
rush
said
through this.
we weren't going to harp.
I think Gerard's team's
drafts.
coming up next, so we'll go ahead and just fly by.
So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to talk about my team for 20 minutes and why I like my draft. No, but we'll start with class of 2017. Someone who's kind of in win now mode. Went after AJ Brown, Antonio Brown.
You like him too, I know.
Gave up his first round pick. He also gave up his 3rd round pick to me for Trey Burton and a 4th, and I feel like I love that trade for my team. We don't have to dive into it because I'm a little biased here. Having made it, I do like Mark Andrews, so I'm very excited about that.
And I like Mark Andrews a lot too. So I think you definitely got the value there. I mean, Mark Andrews is a hell of a player, and I think he's going to develop into that tight end 1 in Baltimore. So
yeah, so pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And I got a 3rd round pick back, which we'll go over who I picked in that spot. But anyway, I digress. And then he picked.
So who did he pick?
Then he picked Preston Williams in the 4th. After trading his 4th round pick 3 times, he finally got it back and ended up with Preston Williams. What can you say? You know, he gets. Oh, did I not even mention JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who he picked in the 2nd? I talked about all the picks he didn't have.
Yeah.
But not the picks that he did have. So so he gets JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who looks like just a big body red zone threat who can step in Philly, and you talk about receivers not really breaking out in year 1, has the potential to break out in year 1.
Yeah, and kind of in that mold of Alshon Jeffrey, I think they're just going to slot him right into that role, and he's going to be the red zone threat pretty much right at the start of the season. I mean, he's making waves in camp. They like what they see in him, and I think they I think they're planning to use him early and often. But when you talk about class of 2017, it's kind of not necessarily the picks that make his draft so good, but the draft capital that he received. So what was it he received from Jets Are on the Clock? He received a 2020 first for a 2020 second, essentially, wasn't it?
No, for a 2019 second.
2019 second.
And he had another 2019 second from his trade with the Dominators, where he got Antonio Brown and a 2nd round pick last year for a first-round pick, Tariq Cohen and Dede Westbrook.
Yeah. So he was able to turn around and then trade to me for Darius Geis and Dallas Goedert. We've talked about that trade already, but I think it's more of the draft capital that he received in this draft, and that's kind of why I felt like I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is going to be a great receiver and for Philadelphia, but I really think the draft capital that he gained in this draft makes again what you're talking about, that quantity or quality over quantity, and where I see it. I was grading him on that opportunity as well, what he was getting.
Well, and I keep in mind, I said that, I was just talking about the people that you were picking in the draft grade, not necessarily like the people that you picked up because of the draft picks that you gave away. But yeah, and then he picks up Preston Williams in the 4th, who in Miami, that wide receiver core is just it's just open for whoever wants to take, because clearly Devontae Parker doesn't want to take
He's not a wide receiver 1, so and they like what they see. I mean, there's a lot of people who are saying that Preston Williams can develop into that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 for them, and maybe earlier than most would think. So yeah, I think he came away with 2 solid wide receivers that adds to his already pretty deep team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a good dart throw there late in the draft. But Malfi definitely should be a competitor this year and for years to come, as his name indicates. Class of 2017 is filled with rookies from 2017, so a lot of people primed to break out here in the 2019-2020 season. I guess 2019 for fantasy's sake. Yeah, and then you want to move on to my team, or do you want to talk about Ryan's team?
Let's save yours for last.
All right.
Let's talk about sick of it all.
So he goes Paris Campbell at 1.9, Jay Sternberger at 2, I guess it was 2.10, 2.9, Dexter Williams, Drew Lock, and then I don't know who his 5th round pick was.
Tony Pollard. Yeah, and I really, you say you don't know it, but I really like that pick. We can go ahead and start.
I just don't know because it had TBD on the list that Tyler sent us before the draft was over. And
so Gerard's using outdated materials here. So Tony Pollard, let's start there. Zeke Elliott is holding out. So I really like this pick. Like, I've talked with Ryan a couple times about this. Like, I think that Tony Pollard could actually, he was behind Daryl Henderson, however you pronounce his name, at Memphis. Didn't really get to show what he could do as a lead back, but was really efficient with his carries. I think he's going to be somebody that's kind of looked at in that Dallas offense can come in and kind of be the pass catching back. I don't think he's going to be the primary backup. I think that's going to be more Mike Weber, or they just re-signed Alfred Morris. I think somebody else is going to come in that role. But I think Tony Pollard has the opportunity to develop into a solid player, especially depending on what Dallas does with Zeke Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, the motivation for Zeke is that he's only in his fourth year of his 5th-year deal, and if he sits out the entire season, he loses more money than he makes, and then he's still going into next year in his 4th year of his 5-year contract. So you would imagine that if Zeke was smart and wanted to get more money and hold out either next year or try to renegotiate over the summer, that he would show up to camp and eventually play. But you know what? I know that Lev Bell kind of set a precedent here. He sat out. He got paid. But this is just a different situation. Lev Bell was an unsigned player who refused to sign a franchise tag. Zeke Elliott is under contract for 2 more years. Same thing with Melvin Gordon, who's under contract for 1 more year. So if he doesn't play this year, he's still under contract for 1 more year. Melvin Gordon and Zeke for 2 more. So, I think there's a little bit more motivation for them to break their holdout. But apparently reports are that Zeke and Dallas are nowhere near an extension, and
I think he's on vacation right now. I don't know if
he's working out in Mexico. So
down in Cabo.
So yeah, that's a solid pick. My favorite pick of Ryan's is Dexter Williams in the 3rd. I think that it really helps out his. I think it helps out his situation. He's got Aaron Jones, who's hyper efficient, and then Jamal Williams in that backfield and is not efficient. But getting 2 Green Bay backs and one that's really efficient, and who knows what Dexter Williams is going to be, I think it just kind of protects that backfield for him, because Jamal Williams is not good enough to be the only back in Green Bay. And the only time he puts up monster fantasy numbers is when he touches the ball 20 plus times.
Yeah. I think, I agree with you there. I think Jamal Williams is going to kind of maybe more quickly than most think. I think he's going to find his way to the running back 3 on that team. I think Dexter Williams is already, I've seen in camp, Aaron Jones has been out a little bit with an injury. Jamal Williams has been out with an injury. So Dexter Williams is kind of getting his opportunity to show what he can do soon in camp. So I think he's going to kind of, I don't know, I just don't see Jamal Williams as that transcendent back. So I think just the better athletes are gonna surpass him. So I think Aaron Jones already proved that he's a better back, and I think Dexter Williams is going to do that as well. Mm-hmm. I really liked Ryan's draft and overall. I mean, I think Paris Campbell, where he got him, I just like a lot of the receivers in this draft. But Paris Campbell, he was the fastest. At least with the 40 time, he had the fastest 40 time in the. No, that's
Metcalf.
That's not right. No, Metcalf did not either. Andy Isabella, actually. I like him a lot too. But Paris Campbell, very quick, Ohio State wide receiver. I think he's going to explode in that Indianapolis offense, given the obviously T.Y. Hilton is still kind of the number 1 there, but I think Paris Campbell has the opportunity to be on the other side, probably getting the second best cornerback. So I feel like that Paris Campbell can really show what he's about in that wide open kind of air raid offense.
Devin Funchess now.
He does
that,
have to.
That will be difficult. But they're also talking up Deion Kane as well. So a little bit of a competition, but
yeah,
I think the concern now is that Andrew Luck is still out with a calf injury, and does that restrict Campbell from having more of an impact this year, not being able to develop that rapport?
Sure.
In preseason, does he get off to a slower start compared to if Luck was there and they were already practicing?
Yeah, and those are valid concerns, and yeah, you better believe I've been checking that Andrew Luck updates every day with the calf. Not sure what exactly it is and how long he's been dealing with this. So
apparently, I kept him out of is it OTAs?
Yeah.
So or mini camp. So it looks like it's something that's lingering and kind of concerning. But it's not even August yet. So there's a good chance that this will be an afterthought come September. But then
I was just going to say, just to mention Jace Sternberger, I mean, somebody who is coming into that Packers offense. Jimmy Graham is obviously kind of occupies that tight end position. We'll see what he does, but he's getting a little older. I don't know how long he's going to stick around. So Jace Sternberger is kind of that next man up as far as the tight ends and everything. So we'll see kind of how he develops. But again, it's a potential developing player.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to make a comment about Jace Sternberger as well. Just thinking, the Packers since like Jermichael Finley back in 2012 haven't really had or used the tight end super effectively. Jared Cook came there.
Even when they have the tight end, they don't use it super effectively.
I think Jared Cook's going to break out, and then he does nothing, and then he goes to Oakland, and he's like tight end, 4, 5 last year.
They have more. What is it? Marcellus Bennett?
Yeah. Martellus Bennett. And then, like Jimmy Graham last year, even though he's kind of like a corpse running around, it's still left more to be desired out of the tight end position. Maybe Jace Sternberger can bring it back to relevance, but it seems like Rodgers likes his receivers, and that's kind of another kind of knock on having a Green Bay running back, is they don't really throw to the running back a lot. Rodgers he's not the check down kind of guy. Yeah. He's a let me extend the play, let me look downfield, let me find Devontae Adams, let me find Jordy Nelson back in the day, Randall Cobb. All down the field, and he's got a whole bunch of new weapons there with MVS, and he's still got Allison and Adams, and who knows if Kamaru or Jamon Moore or Equinemius St. Brown, make a statement there and come out and be his new favorite target downfield. But that's just like the one comment about a second round tight end in a team that doesn't really use the tight end a lot. But Jermichael Finley at one time had fantasy relevance, and Aaron Rodgers was his quarterback. So maybe and they got a new offensive system now. So maybe it is something that improves, and Jace steps into a role, and Ryan gets a really good player there at the tight end position.
Yeah, and not his final pick, but the final pick that we're going to go over today for Ryan is Drew Lock. So somebody that I think can ultimately, they say Flacco's playing really well. I know you have been down on Flacco his whole career, so
that's useless.
Yeah, I don't see much to be desired there. I mean, I think John Elway brought him in because he's good looking, 6'6", whatever, just a strong arm quarterback, somebody that can get it down the field. Yeah. But I think it's no more than a 1-2 year option for him.
John Elway doesn't have the best track record with picking quarterbacks since Peyton
He loves
Manning.
those 6'6" guys.
Yeah.
Brock Osweiler's been there. I guess Case Keenum, I don't know how tall he is.
I don't think he's 6'6", though.
I don't think he's 6'6".
Paxton Lynch?
Paxton Lynch was a draft pick.
Guy.
He was a taller guy. I think he was 6'7". John Elway just falls in love with that, like, strong arm, tall, athletic-looking quarterback that can't really do anything.
That isn't a good football player.
So we shall see with Drew Lock. Again, kind of, I think he's 6'4", 6'5", and has that strong arm, but we'll see where he falls in that, and he might get a shot this year even if Flacco kind of leaves something to be desired on the field. So
yeah. And then I guess last but not least, talk about my team.
You want to talk about the team name change at all, or
I mean, I just
kind of honoring Justin
Tucker because he was my favorite player and probably my best player. And since we've eliminated kickers, now he's no longer on my team. So he will forever be a part of this league, whether it's through my team name or actually on my roster. But
thankfully we got rid of them. Maybe defense is the next thing.
Defense might be next to come. I can get on board with that. I can even see extending the starting lineup. But that'll all be for the owners meeting, the winter meetings next year. Which, just a little disclaimer here, Brent shaking his head already. I'd like to do a weekend with the league. I think it'd be a lot of fun. We can rent a house pretty cheap. We can find a location that works for everyone, especially the guys out on the West Coast and the one in Florida. But I think it'd be a lot of fun because everyone knows certain people in the league, and we got to see and hear everyone's passion about the league at this owners meeting. So I think it's only going to get better if we all get together and spend some time and get to know everyone.
Harrisonburg is a great winter destination.
It is. It's also not where the owners meeting is going to be.
Massanutten Ski Resort.
That is true. That is true. But I don't ski, so we're not going to do that. So we will talk about a location. But I just want to put that on everyone's radar, and we'll be talking about it more as the season goes on. But going to my team,
let's finish this up.
So I really like, not necessarily my draft, but just the quantity of my draft. I like Jalen Hurd.
Quantity.
I like Jalen Hurd because I feel like Jalen Hurd is kind of he's a different kind of player. He's a super versatile player. He was a running back in high school, a receiver in college, and talked slightly about moving to tight end or being able to play like a receiving tight end role here with San Francisco. He's different than Deebo Samuel and Dante Pettis. A little bit of a bigger guy. So I think that he holds a lot of value in an offense in San Francisco because I think he's kind of just the different the missing piece or a different type of piece to the types of receivers they have already.
Yeah, and I think Kyle Shanahan I think he's one of the better coaches in the league, talking about schemes, that sort of thing. I think Jalen Hurd can line up running back, fullback, slot receiver, wide receiver. So I think just the versatility there is going to be really good. I think they're going to try to use him in an assortment of positions. And yeah, I think he's going to be a quality player. I don't know how that receiving core shakes up. I don't know how that running back core shakes up. So I don't know the opportunity for him. But I think Shanahan will try to get him involved in that offense.
And what does versatility mean in a fantasy player? You know, like, does that mean that he's fantasy relevant? Does that mean that he has 3 touches a game and one of them might be a big play? So,
is it Tavon Alston or is it somebody who's much more production? Yes.
Who started as a gadget guy and then now has grown into who Tyreek Hill is. So I like that pick for me. He was the person who I was targeting into the draft, so I was really happy he fell to me there at 210. And then I didn't have a 3rd round pick because of some trade, and I didn't have a 1st round pick, and I didn't have a 5th round pick because I moved back into the 4th round last year. So I really wanted to get back into the 3rd round, and I really love the trades that I made to get back in there. I like that I traded Jordan Howard. I liked my 2 targets this draft were Jalen Hurd and Raquel Armstead, and I got both of them. And then to move Jordan Howard, who is someone who could have a good year, but someone who's kind of one of those just frustrating guys. Very happy to move him, get a 2nd next year as well, and Trey Quinn, who looks like he might have the slot in Washington. But I think Raquel Armstead holds a ton of value in Jacksonville. He could be the receiving back. Fournette might get suspended, might get injured like he has the last 2 years. I think he takes over that backfield, or at least splits it with Alfred Blue.
I think Alfred Blue is the 2nd back right now. I think I heard in camp he's kind of outproducing right now. But Alfred Blue is a journeyman, and he's
and Armstead started the camp on PUP.
Oh, okay.
So he's he might be breaking in a little bit slower.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think it's an excellent situation. Like you said, Fournette is a hell of a back when he's out there, but is he going to be suspended? Is he going to be injured? I mean, that ankle, is it going to hold up? I think Jacksonville is a little leery, and some reports that they were looking to trade or move off of him even before this season. So depending on what they decide to do and which direction they're going to go, I don't think Fournette's the long-term answer in Jacksonville. So Raquel Armstead might get some work into this season.
Mm-hmm. And then I traded with Malf. We talked about the Andrews for Burton trade, and there was a couple other pieces there. One of the pieces was a 3rd round pick, and that's where I picked up Kelvin Harmon. Kelvin Harmon was someone who had a ton of hype around him prior to his draft year, and then kind of fell off in his draft year. And I mean, I like the opportunity. That Washington wide receiver core is kind of wide open. Kelvin Harmon might not be the answer. It was between kind of him or Terry McLaurin, but I think that Kelvin Harmon, his ability to high point the ball is one very more similar to a wide receiver 1 than Terry McLaurin, who I feel like is a little bit more of like a slot underneath kind of possession guy. But that's my assessment, and not necessarily an accurate one, but that's why I went with Kelvin Harmon in that spot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people talked about Kelvin Harmon's age. Like, I think he's a little older than the typical receiver coming out of college, and kind of talking about like what his production is going to be. But we look at Calvin Ridley last year. He was a wide receiver, 24 years old coming into the league, so a little more age on him. But yeah, Kelvin Harmon, I mean, he has excellent opportunity. I don't see Josh, what's his name? Doxson, irrelevant. I think
another
he's
guy
just
totally way too much on the podcast.
Yeah, I think he's kind of an irrelevant piece in Washington. I think Paul Richardson, we'll see what happens with him. But again,
I can't stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's like that. Washington is a wide receiver, like not necessarily destination, but I feel like any of the wide receivers have a possibility of.
It's a roulette. It's a roulette wheel.
Yeah.
You put a ball in, you spin it around, and just see who catches the ball, and we'll see who has a big impact. But obviously McLaurin had the connection with Haskins, and Haskins goes there.
And I've seen them develop. I mean, obviously the connection that they had. I've been seeing some training reports saying McLaurin is developing well. But yeah, I think Harmon's going to get his opportunity and could really produce in that.
And if not, there's a spot on the taxi squad for him.
Yep.
And then in the 4th round, I picked Josh Oliver. Just kind of a dart. Figure ASJ's gone in Jacksonville, kind of an open spot. Grab him, and then pick up, Jeff Swain and Jeff Swain in free agency.
Going from Dallas to Jacksonville.
Yeah, just really cornering the market on the Jacksonville tight ends, which is probably exactly where you want to be with your fantasy team in the tight end department.
As long as you can get those Jacksonville tight ends.
Yeah, that's like everyone's target.
But in all honesty, I mean, we joke about it, but new quarterbacks coming in, Nick Foles, obviously we know his connection. I'm not saying that Josh Oliver is Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert, but he's a check down quarterback. I think he's going to kind of be more like, okay, find that tight end, rely a little bit more on them. So if Josh Oliver can kind of beat out Jeff Swain or whoever's in that position, which should be a pretty easy task, I think he can definitely have a good opportunity for himself.
And you think about opportunity, you got to think about targets. Well, DeFilippo is the offensive coordinator, and last year Minnesota was on pace for over 600 pass attempts, and when he was the offensive coordinator in Cleveland, they had over 600 pass attempts with just a gaudy quarterback play.
Yeah, and he was also in Philadelphia too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where he came from, so I mean, and Philly's had a quality tight end for years now, so I'm sure he had a little piece of that Zach Ertz when he was there.
So probably a lot of opportunity there for all of the pass catchers in Jacksonville, and maybe not just the tight ends, but yeah. And then I took a shot at Emmanuel Hall. I've since dropped Emmanuel Hall, so we won't talk about him anymore. Yeah. But that'll be it for our draft recaps. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Held Brent's feet to the fire a couple times about some draft grades, and some other people's feet to the fire about some trades. So
I think I finally realized what I wasn't realizing this before, but I gave you a B and I gave myself a B. Yeah. I think that's where you got really upset about.
I think that's where I did get upset, because I felt like I came in, we both came in with 2 picks in the draft, first pick at like 210, 211, and I felt like I did a lot of work to come away with 4 guys who I thought had a chance to play in the league, and you came away with 1 guy who's probably going to be on a team, and who knows what happens with Homer. But
I agree. Again, it's that quantity over quality. You just like the quantity of picks, and we'll throw a dart out there and see what sticks.
I like throwing darts.
Yeah,
but
and you worked hard for those.
I did.
But I think I equally worked pretty diligently on getting back into the first round and making a quality pick. So anyways, we'll save that argument. You all can kind of let us know what your thoughts are on that. But yeah, we had a good time breaking down the draft grades and that sort of thing. But we want to tell them about what's to come in the future episodes.
Yeah, so moving forward on the podcast, I think we're just going to start breaking down full rosters and not just rookies. Breaking down, maybe, I don't know if we're going to go as far as picking out what we think everyone's record's going to be, but probably just where they fall in the standings, whether they make the playoffs, whether they don't make the playoffs. I don't know how in depth we're going to get with that, or if we just feel like there's going to be a regression, but we'll figure that out. Don't worry about it, guys. And then at that point we'll probably try to bring some people on from each division, get them to talk about their team, like we did with Nick and Tyler and Rob. I know Malf's itching to get on, so we can get Malf on here, let him talk about how excited he is, and then we can kind of argue about his trade for Darius Geis. But we can go on from there. We want to bring people on, and hopefully before the season kicks off, we can get maybe 2 or 3 teams on, talk about like what we just said, talk about their 2019 outlook, and just to kind of see what's in store. Yeah, and then once we'll try to get a weekly podcast going once the regular season starts, where we break down the week that was, potentially talk with the person who scored the highest points or had a big win, and just kind of, keep tabs on the league, make fun of some people, congratulate some people, and just try to have some fun with this, because I know I'm having a good time doing the podcast, and I don't know about you, Brent, but
Yeah, absolutely. And like we always say, we want that buy-in. So anything that you all can, any comments that you have for us, any questions that you have, if you want to get on, let us know. We'll definitely try to talk to each owner kind of as the season progresses, that sort of thing.
yeah. And then just some important dates. We're coming up on the off season here. We're getting into August, so things are starting to move. August 1st, I guess, which will be after this podcast is put out. It's the 31st today, but we'll get it out pretty quick. August 1st will be when the 2 IR slots will open on your team. So anyone who's currently on the PUP list or on IR will be able and eligible to be put on IR. Then August 15th, the 5 taxi squad spots will be open, so you can start moving your roster around a little bit. Then you'll have a week or so to either pick up a couple more guys, see how they do, or just drop down to 25 active roster, 5 taxi squad, and then potentially up to 2 IR slots. And then that'll be August 21st will be the date for that. So August 15th, the taxi squad opens. August 21st, we're cutting down rosters to 25 active people, 5 taxi squads, 2 IR spots. And then August 28th will be final cuts, where your active roster needs to be 20 people. If everyone can be on it, make sure you have cuts done by that time, that'd be great. Otherwise, Brent, Mike, and I will decide who deserves to be cut on your team and make that decision for you.
You don't want that to happen.
Don't make us make that decision. We won't be egregious, but still, you don't want us to make that decision.
And just to kind of go on, we've had a lot of different rule changes, but to mention the taxi squad. So it is going to be 5 taxi squad spots this year, and they're going to be
interchangeable,
and they're going to be first and second.
And second.
Yep.
So it's interchangeable, part of your roster, except only people who are rookies and second-year players are eligible to be there. So even though it's 5 extra spots, it's still... I guess it's still limited in the sense that you can't put Eli Manning on your taxi squad.
I bet David Gettleman wishes that he could put Eli Manning.
Oh, David Gettleman is going to rotate Flacco and Manning, even though he has Goff, Trubisky, and whoever else his third quarterback is, Josh Allen, on his team. He can't wait to play Flacco and Manning opposite weeks.
Gettleman.
All right, guys. All right. Happy August. Hall of Fame games tomorrow. Enjoy some football, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, see you later, guys.
Thank you for listening to Tonight We Die Nasty. If you enjoyed our content, be sure to like and share with your friends. If you have any suggestions for us to talk about in our future fantasy endeavors, please leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to talk about it. Thank you.